I'm gonna go ahead and start. So thank you so much again for joining me. It has been 5 years since I've presented in person, so my hands are sweaty. And today I'm gonna be talking about AI at work. I love that there's a packed room because I think that this is absolutely our future. As PowerShellers even, a lot of times before I was like, well, I'm not really into Python. I don't know, but I see a lot of opportunities for our community. So my name is Chrissy LeMaire, and I'm a dual Microsoft MVP and GitHub star. And I'm also a software engineer at Leidos. I'm actually a front-end developer, and I do JavaScript now. And honestly, I got the confidence to accept this position because I knew SharePoint, but I also had ChatGPT in my back pocket. I'm also a Manning author. I have this book that I will be giving away at the end. And I'm also writing a new book called Generative AI for the IT Pro. And a lot of this session was actually taken from the research that I was doing for the book. And yes, thank you so much. You can get 45% off not just from these books, but all of Manning through July 3rd using LeMaire 3 PSCU. And I'm also uploading these slides in case you don't know how to spell my last name. It's tough. I'm also exclusively now on LinkedIn. Sometimes I'm on Blue Sky, but really if I'm doing any new work, I will post everything there. You could go to gptmaker.dev/LinkedIn, and that will go to my LinkedIn profile, or you could just look on LinkedIn. So I really love this quote by Arthur C. Clarke. It's any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that's really the way that I feel about ChatGPT and LLMs and AI in general, which I really wasn't expecting. I mean, the first thing that really opened my eyes to original ways of using ChatGPT was this tweet by Peter Yang. And he said, he has this picture, right? And I have parked under one of these and I have gotten towed in San Francisco. And it says, it's Wednesday at 4 p.m. Can I park at this spot right now? Just tell me in one line because they tend to talk. And it says, yes, you can park for up to 1 hour starting at 4 p.m., which is just so magical. So I started thinking of using it in different ways. Like there's this French restaurant that I always pass by and I told my wife, everybody there looks so happy and it has such great reviews. Let's go to this French restaurant and eat. And she said, I saw that their menu is up on the wall and I have terrible eyes and I can't see. But finally, we ended up going there. So we both pulled out our phones and we were taking pictures so that we could zoom in. And I was like, wait, why don't I just give this to ChatGPT and ask for a translation? So this took care of 3 problems. The first one was that it was far away. The second one is that it was in French. And the third one is that it was written in cursive, which I can understand. But my understanding is that a lot of younger people cannot, at least in other countries. In Europe, it's still taught cursive. Yes, no, yes, awesome. I think it should be. So whenever the vision part came out, right, and vision is uploading pictures, and I think soon it'll be uploading video, people said, you could go to the bar and you can brainstorm with all of your friends and you can take that napkin that you wrote on and upload it and make it design or develop your website. And so I didn't have a napkin. So I used balsamic markups and I was creating this bot for my cat. He's silly. And I was working with fine tuning, which is essentially giving a model long-term memory. And I wanted to give it a front end. So I built this and I said, hey, can you help me talk to Potato? And it gave me really awesome CSS and HTML. And then I was like, wait, hold on. I want to see if it understands like culture as well. So I said, do you remember Web 2.0 and that internet? And it said, I certainly do. It was sometime around 2007. There were a lot of drop shadows. Dig.com was using those and Slashdot. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, well then can you just make this blaringly 2007, right? And I love it because it really echoed my own language back to me, said blaringly 2007 and that classic light gray background. Now, Comic Sans MS, it wasn't really part of that era, but I did say outrageous, over the top, completely ridiculous. So it threw in that font. And this is ultimately what it made, which really satisfied all of the requirements. This bot is actually really awesome. I want to put it up. By the end of the week, I deleted that Azure resource because I was trying to save some money, and I probably shouldn't have because it totally sounds like if Potato could talk. The other thing that I love using Gen AI for is, so I love making themes. I'll make a theme for the Windows terminal. The Windows terminal, I'll make it for VS Code for anything that I can, essentially. And when I saw this website, I said, man, that's really nice. That would make a really nice VS Code theme, I think. So I uploaded it. But if you notice, there's not a lot of colors on here. So there's going to be missing colors. So I said, hey, for anything that's missing, just throw in like complementary colors. And it really did a fantastic job. So now if you have some kind of color theme that you like, you can make your own VS Code themes very easily. So now that I've convinced you all, but you all were using Gen AI, which is really awesome. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to talk about the current lineup, battle of the bots that I am using, and also go over some tech solutions and then the people solutions, which is my favorite part. And that's using Gen AI to actually deal with your coworkers and other people. So the first thing that you want to do is check your company's AI policy. This is extremely important. And if they say that it's not currently allowed, then you could go home, you could get on ChatGPT, and you can write a compelling argument that makes them adopt a Gen AI, because it is very important for all of our future. I believe that if we don't use it, don't understand it, don't integrate it, then we'll probably be left behind. Next up, privacy and security. So if you value your privacy, which I know that Europeans very much do, go to privacy.openai.com and opt out of everything. And also redact when possible, unless you're using some hosted service like Azure, OpenAI services. What I tend to do if I have to use ChatGPT is I will upload, I'll change everything and kind of keep a dictionary of what has to be replaced. Like instead of the company name, it'll be like the corporation or something very generic. Next up, OpenAI does offer enterprise subscriptions. Claude probably does too, and Google as well. But ultimately, if you want to use an OpenAI product like ChatGPT, I would just use Azure if you can, because I know that Microsoft is strongly committed to confidentiality, privacy, and security. So the current lineup, any of you use Anthropic Claude? Oh my God. So one person, if you try it out, you will be absolutely blown away. I recently had to switch. I have a module called Fine Tuna that fine tunes, and I switched from using the PowerShell AI dependency to PS OpenAI, and I uploaded the entire PS OpenAI module in one like giant text file. And then I said, here are the commands from PowerShell AI. I would like if you could help me switch. Learn deeply the parameters, learn how to use the module, then rate your own knowledge 10 out of 10. And it did such a good job. And the reason is that it has an incredible memory. Each time that you talk to Anthropic Claude, it will go through every single thing that both you and the bot said. And you won't have the problems that you might see sometimes with ChatGPT. After a long session, you have to remind it of a whole bunch of things. So it's fantastic at coding, advanced or long command. Oh, and it's even better at writing. We use it in our newest book because you'll notice with ChatGPT that it tends to write like factually, but not very compellingly. And Claude, it really does that. I use Claude Opus, and it's just really fantastic. I also use OpenAI, ChatGPT. I do have 4 subscriptions, so 2 of each. It's a powerful free tier, the best all-around bot. So if you don't need a writer, but you need it to do a whole lot of things, then I would go with OpenAI ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, by the way, that's the front end consumer product. You can't change any of the parameters like the temperature and things like that, but it's a very easy to use interface. It excels at vision. So the things that I showed you earlier, I don't think that that's possible with a lot of the other bots. And custom GPTs are awesome if you have used them. Microsoft Copilot for 365, just going to go over this real quick. It's part of Microsoft's ecosystem, so it offers really deep integration, but I have seen observable differences in the responses and capabilities compared to both Claude and ChatGPT. I think that this is going to be a big part of our future, but currently for the consumer, not so much, at least in my experience. And the same is true for Google Gemini. I love and use Gmail. I think that in the future, the integration is going to be incredible. But it was really terrible whenever I tested it out. My co-author and best friend, Brandon, he was able to get it working a little bit better. And I know others have had luck, but in my experience, it was not so good. So the API, this is a different subscription from ChatGPT. ChatGPT has that nice little front end, and the OpenAI API is what we as PowerShell developers will be using. This offers the newest models first, which is really nice. It also gives you far more control, so you could change the parameters for it, like you want more tokens or less tokens, etc. And people say that it often performs better than ChatGPT. For me, they perform the same because I don't mess with any of the parameters. And also, again, Azure AI has an open AI service. It's privacy focused. It does lag a little with the new models, but it's just like a week or two, which is actually how long it takes for ChatGPT to get the new models. And you do have to pay for storage, and that is actually the third most expensive thing that I am paying for. With ChatGPT, you can upload as much as you want. And with the OpenAI API, you can also upload as much as you want. You don't get extra charges, but you currently do with Azure. And this is what it looks like. If you're wondering, like, what does this API playground look like? So it's really nice. You could change things. You could pick a very, very specific model. For the longest time, I only liked the GPT-4 model from June of 2023. And that was the one that I choose up until GPT-4o. It is good enough. So the cost. Anthropic Claude Opus is $20 a month. And I know that I'm using USD, and I apologize, but it was just easier to find that, across the board, whenever you go to all the different services, it's always in USD and sometimes in euros. But for $20 a month, you'll have dynamic limits. Some days it'll let you do more, some days less, but it's about 20 long messages every 4 hours. And when I say long, I'm talking about uploading that module and being like, give me a command, and it'll write all of this out. And again, replay all of that. Its precision is absolutely incredible. ChatGPT Plus is also $20 a month. This is all you'll ever pay. That's $20 a month, end of story. You get about 80 messages every 3 hours on 4.0 and 40 messages on 4. I haven't ran out of messages in a long time because, again, this changes. The capacity changes. Actually, the quality even changes by the day and sometimes by the session. Claude Opus has a 200,000 token context, and one token is about 75% of a word. So I think that means about 150,000 words. My math might be terrible. But I think it's about 150,000 words that you can upload to its token context as it's remembering and talking back to you. The input, so that's you saying, hey, Opus, I did this thing in PowerShell. Can you do this other thing? That's $15 per million tokens. So about 750,000 words is $15. The output is $75 per million tokens. That number is actually so scary to me that I don't even use it. Whenever it outputs stuff, it's only 4,000 tokens at a time. I think across all LLMs. An LLM is a large language model. That's like OpenAI and Claude. And, but whenever you compare that to OpenAI, the 4.0 model, it has 128,000 token context, which isn't really that big of a difference, but you're only paying 5 for 1 million tokens and 15 for 1 million tokens. So this is the one that I generally use. Azure OpenAI, I was really surprised and delighted to find that it costs the same as OpenAI for their API service. But then you do have to pay for the storage, as I mentioned previously, and that's where you're going to get hit with the bigger bucks. So you might say, hey, Chrissy, you're super into open source. What about open source and local LLMs? That's where you run like kind of a version of ChatGPT or Claude on your local machines. I haven't been able to explore it yet because I built all of my machines, 1 for RDP, so I didn't need any kind of video card, and 2 for SQL Server. So I really mostly I needed RAM. So I don't have the computer resources, and at the time, I didn't have the time because I was writing the book. However, Microsoft just released for VS Code the AI toolkit, and this is awesome because whenever I went to this LLM index called Hugging Face, I was super overwhelmed. I'm not a data scientist. I tried to download things using pretty web interfaces like Jan, and then I would pick a model that completely didn't work on my machine, and it would be literally a word every minute, and it was horrible. But what I don't know, there's a limited number of models that the AI toolkit offers, and maybe that is because Microsoft determines what your computer could use. I don't know, but what was great is that I literally got responses back, and you could see it kind of looks the same as the API playground that you can mess with that temperature. What it also means, though, is that you can download this and put it on an offline network, so you can have AI in an air-gapped system, which is just the coolest thing. But this is all my opinion. If you want to know, the official leaderboard where Silicon Valley goes to see all of this, you could go to chat.lmsys.org. And this is where you can see the bots that are currently performing the best. So let's talk about the tech part. Bill Gates said AI is every bit as important as the PC and as the internet. And I totally agree. Whenever it came out, I was like, oh, this is something that we really have to pay attention to. And I think that we all should consider it as we are PowerShell professionals. One of the things that I love are custom GPTs. And what this does is it gives you a specific context. So whenever you create this custom GPT, yes, it could do everything in the world, right? But what this particular custom GPT does is that it just splats. It doesn't bore me with a bunch of language about how splats are good and maybe their best practices or anything like that. And it uses the variables that I want. So I like $splat. So it says, what are my instructions? And it says, you convert PowerShell commands to splatted commands. Use $splat and @splat. You don't explain. You just output code, no words. And it's like, oh, God. And this is Rick and Morty reference. I don't know if y'all have it. Yeah, nice. Thank you. I actually used this when I started contributing to PS OpenAI, and the author used backticks. And so I just went and replaced all of his backticks using this custom GPT. And you know how we're told, hey, if you do anything more than once, then you should code it up in PowerShell. Now that is the way that I feel about a custom GPT. If I find myself doing a repetitive task, I'm going to create an API assistant, or I'm going to create a custom GPT. Another one that I created, and I was actually just talking to Fred. Fred wrote a module that updates all of the help. Whenever I used to program, I would always keep the help updated, and it was kind of exhausting because whenever you first start designing a module, it looks very different from the module at the end. So I would update my help, and then I'd have to throw away that documentation. So now what I do is I design the entire thing, I build the entire module, and then at the very end, I just paste it into this, and it gives me help in the exact way that I want it. These things are excellent at following instructions and also following really good examples. So in this one, I tell it to create detailed, genuinely helpful PowerShell help for commands that are uploaded. And you can see here, I found some help that I actually liked. The synopsis is short. The description has not one but 2 lines. And now whenever I get that help back, it follows that, which is just magic to me. And I did say AI at work, and, I think at heart, a PowerShell developer, but I am doing JavaScript. And I do want to highlight the context again with custom GPTs. Every single time that I open one, you could see this list on the left, right? We have DBA tools help, MVP contributions, the PowerShell splatter. I use it to write my book. Every time that I open one of these, I don't have to tell it all about me again, right? I don't have to say, this is the version of SharePoint that we're running. This is my experience. I'm a PowerShell developer. I know a lot about SQL. Talk to me in that language. And so whenever I interact with this private SharePoint dev guide, it talks to me and it says, well, you know how when you use PowerShell help, it looks like this. Well, JS docs looks like this. And that's really, it's really helpful. And whenever custom GPTs came out, I thought I would be making them for other people. But what I found is that I make them for myself mostly. So log analysis, as a systems administrator, a lot of times we'll get these logs that are just like super duper long, and they're exhausting to read through. But if you have, a service like OpenAI on Azure, then you can upload that log. And let me go ahead and show you, what this looks like. Sorry, 3. All right. So we're going to go here. Oops. And I'm going to paste this into, I'm going to start a new one. Oh, by the way, start new ones all the time. I start new windows. If I don't like the answer that one window gives, I'll just open up another one and I do it until I like that answer. And then that way the rest of the session is pretty good. Oops. You know what? I didn't upload anything. That never happened during practice. All right. So I'm going to do the log analysis. Actually, sorry, that's not the right one. I'm going to upload this PC diagnostics, etc. This is a real log file. And then I'm going to tell it, read this, extract all of the lines, tell me what went wrong, and then provide the solutions. Now I could just sit back as it reads the documents. So it finds all of the issues, gives very specific reasons. In this case, I didn't have a domain, and it's torturous if you don't have a domain. Also, I guess we had some legacy encryption. So I love this. It has the suggested solutions for everything. And now, I didn't even have to look through the log, just uploaded it and have everything here. And again, I do want to emphasize this is from a lab. I wouldn't actually do it from work unless I had Azure AI API services. So this was really nice. The next one, if you want to actually do this for yourself, you could go to gptmaker.dev/splog, download that log and see what it's like. I always love sample data. So system administration, I don't know if any of you know Luz Cannon. His name is Joe Warren. He was actually here at PSConf the other year. And anytime that I'm really excited about something, I'll be like, hey, Joe, you have to check this out. So I called him and I was like, hey, check out ChatGPT. It's going to change your life. And so he's like, all right, I'll be back. And the first thing that he did was, as systems engineers, we don't just do technical things. We also have to do business oriented things. And this was one of his actual prompts that he was so excited about the output for. So let's go and look at his prompt. Are all of y'all familiar with the change request? So it's, I love that. Yeah, so it's something that it took him 2 days generally to do the change requests. And he wrote back and he just thanked me. He was like, it used to take me so long and now it takes me mere minutes because I didn't even have to give it a template. Now, if you do have a template, it will follow those instructions so very, very well. But he didn't have a template and it goes through. He doesn't actually have to even Google how to move your DHCP server. It'll actually do that and include a rollback plan, the pre-migration, the post-migration. And this was just such a huge win for him. So this is really nice. Beautiful. Yeah, all right. The other thing, mo distros, mo problems. So if you've worked with Linux, you know that over the course of time, a Linux distro could change how it sets up its init, where it stores its logs. And even if you have to switch, a lot of times I find that Linux shops don't just run one distro. It'll be various ones. You're like, which distro is this on? I'm not going to run this particular prompt, but just know that ChatGPT, most LLMs, many, know all of this, that they can help you navigate the nuances of working with Linux. All right, so I know that you can't see this, but I'm going to describe it to you. So this is AI integration. How many of you are not formal developers, like you're like PowerShell developers, like you're not doing like C# and things like that? How many of you would like to use PowerShell to integrate AI into your modules, into your apps, into your entire business processes? All right. You will after this, because this is super cool. All right. So this is a SharePoint document library, and we're going to zoom in pretty closely. But the first row that you're going to see are the documents. These are all Word docs for a fake law firm. And how did I generate these? I used a custom GPT that makes real fake legal documents. But the thing about it is, with each of these documents, they each have metadata that is attached. And whenever, as a data person, I was like, oh my God, hell yeah, these are columns, and we'll add it, and then users can fill it out. And then now the search engine will be able to find it easier. And then the users, and I'm a user, we're like, I don't want to fill that out. Like, I'm going to have to click this and do that. I just wanted to save it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to save it to my desktop. And then it's not in SharePoint, or it's empty, because that's actually what the industry, I think, has decided, is that we're just not going to fill this in. Well, now we can do it. First of all, Azure does offer cognitive services, but I wanted to know how to do this with a different way. And I think that you will all be shocked to know that AI integration is just JSON, which means that we, as PowerShellers, can integrate AI into our own processes quite easily. And what's extra amazing is, look at this. This is English, right? This is, what area of law does this primarily belong to? Like, I am programming in JSON and my native language. And this is what created all of this. It went through, I uploaded that document. This is Power Apps and this JSON. So these are called function calls. And this is what the rest of it looks like. What type of legal document is this? What are the names of the parties involved in this legal matter? Whenever I realized this, that it's all REST endpoints, it really changed my position as a PowerShell developer. If you want to see this, I saw somebody taking pictures. You could go to gptmaker.dev/JSON, and it will show you everything that was used to put in that metadata. This is also chapter 10 in the book, and I will be doing presentations about this. It was just really hard to grasp as somebody who thought that AI was magic math. It took a long time for me to realize, I can do this, and it's all with JSON. And then I did create something for all of you. This is dbatools.ai. This is not a commercial product. I built it strictly to help the PowerShell community see how to integrate AI into their own modules. And as you can see here, so Northwind is a sample database that was included in in SQL Server back in the 90s. And you can see here, I'm talking to it in plain English. Any employees' birthdays coming up? And then it says Robert King's birthday is coming up on May 29th. He's a sales representative. And whenever I figured out how to do this, I'm like, is that how you do it? You actually just extract the schema and then put it into the custom GPT's instructions. Yes, that's how you do it. And then you get it back in a very specific format. But yeah, this is all for you. And in the future, I will be doing presentations on it. So now let's talk about the people part and dealing with difficult coworkers. This was actually the first time that I used AI at work. So AI is ideal for anyone who dreads conflict. And I think that a lot of people dread conflict because you're like, what do I say? I don't know. Like, I need the perfect response, right? And I don't want to fight. I'm going to say something wrong or they're going to say something wrong, but it can help you find those words and it can help you resolve the issue. So now we aren't alone in finding those words and confronting problematic situations. It just becomes far less daunting. And it also helps remove bias when we're upset. So there was a job that I left over this incident. SharePoint. So at the time I was a SQL Server DBA. And I didn't tell anybody that I knew SharePoint because I wanted to do SQL Server. And, but so SharePoint went down, which sometimes it happens, right? And the SharePoint engineer in the company somehow was the most powerful person in the entire organization. So it went down and she was like, hey, check your SQL servers. And I was like, all right. Oh, thank God they're up. Cause a lot of times it is SQL. So I'm like, all right, they're up. And then she's like, all right, so I'm on assignment. I'll be back and I'll fix this. And I'm like, all right. Wouldn't want to be her. So she comes back from the assignment and she's like, I just can't get it. And so she just can't get it. And then she has to go back on assignment. And then she comes back the next week. And I was like, all right, gig's up. I actually know how to do SharePoint and I could help bring this up. And they're like, no. And she said, I am the only person in this organization that is smart enough to bring up the SharePoint form. And I was like, yeah, it was really hard. So I said, hey, manager, I've done this before 100,000 times. I've actually presented about SharePoint. I know a lot about it. I know that I didn't say anything before. And he's like, no, she said that she could do it. She said that you can't do it. And that's the gospel. So then she goes and I know that this story sounds made up because I'm about to tell you, first of all, that it's true. And second of all, that SharePoint was allowed to be down for 3 weeks. 3 weeks before they gave me SharePoint and I had it back up within 24 hours. So then I was like, oh, thank God, it's one of my first days here. So I could prove myself. And somebody said, hey, by the way, you're going to be thrown under the bus. And I said, it's all right because the work speaks for itself. And then it turned out that the work didn't speak for itself and that this company, this organization was more focused on campaigning for image, right? So image was the most important thing. It actually wasn't the work product. And I didn't want to do that. So I was like, all right, so I'm probably going to leave. And then my manager hands me the AAR, the after action report. And I read it and it's just horrifying. And this AAR was filled with things that made the customer look bad. It made my company look bad. It made individuals look bad. It was the opposite of everything that an AAR should be. Now, I had only worked at one organization that used AARs. So I was like, maybe I have this wrong. So I asked ChatGPT, hey, you know what an AAR is? And I was like, yeah, it's all this stuff. I'm like, oh, thank God. All right. Are we supposed to name engineers in this and blame people? And it's like, no, it's supposed to be a neutral document. And the only time that you are supposed to put in a name is if it's relevant. So I was like, all right, I thought so. Okay, well, I have a task for you. Here is a horrifying AAR that I need you to make neutral. And I'm going to tell you what happened in my own words, but I also want you to know I am super biased. I do not like this person at all. So consider that when you hear my story. So I'm like, and then type it out. And then it was so beautiful. The way that I said, look, I don't want to blame anybody, but we have to include the reason that this went down, and it was this person's fault. So can you please do that dance for me? And if you've ever done that dance, it's very hard. It's mentally taxing to remain neutral on something that's so overtly, outrageously over the top ridiculous. And it did it so well. Right there in that moment, I knew that my life changed, and I knew that I would be using AI for the rest of my life at work, at home, the restaurant, wine recommendations. So the other thing is disaster recovery. So I'm mostly listing this one because I really want to highlight that Ask Me 10 Questions. I learned about it on Instagram. It says here, I need your help creating a comprehensive DR plan for our university's IT infrastructure. I didn't know what to ask it, right? I don't know what exactly goes into DR. So ask me 10 questions that will help you generate a well-structured DR plan based on best practices. And this is one of the most effective prompts, I think, in the world, especially if you don't know exactly what you're doing. I've used it for, I had a bad breakup one time and I didn't really understand what was going on. Can you ask me 10 questions about the relationships so I could figure this out? So I use it just under every possible context. And let's go ahead and look at this in action. So this one is disaster. So you can kind of see the output. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Let's see. We're going to start. Whole new one. And something else that I love is pretend that I answered all those questions and just give me output so I could see like where it's going. So you can see this is really nice. It talks about RTO and RPO. It talks about, risks and threats. All of these things that are generally in there. And you could say, hey, these are some questions. What are you going to output? So let's see. Pretend that I answered all of those. All right. I use this all the time. So it gives all of these answers. And you might say, hey, Chrissy, so my DR documentation is really, really long and yours is not. Like writing. So whenever I write with Claude, I say like outline the chapter and let's go paragraph by paragraph. So I do it in sections. So what this can do is once it answers everything, let's pretend, man, it's talking a lot. All right. Show me, right. 3. Oh, it doesn't count well. Paragraphs about number 14. So you can go through and just do it one by one, which is actually how I did that AAR, right? I had the entire outline and then I just went bit by bit. So you can see, look at that. That's a whole lot of information. All right. All right. Sentiment analysis. This was just kind of thrown in there because I think that this is maybe what we can get in the future. Whenever we have Google and Microsoft 365 integrated with sentiment analysis, it can actually help detect subtle signs of emerging conflicts and suggest mediation strategies, which is particularly useful for remote teams where you don't have that body language. And so all you have is your actual language. And I have used this in the past. There was like this, bless you. There was a disastrous project that failed. And I uploaded my redacted emails and I was like, what went wrong here? I don't understand the motivations of this person. And it was so moving. The answer helped me better understand where that person was coming from. But it was also moving because it told me I was totally in the right. So as an employee, in Europe, do y'all have to do self-evaluations? Yeah. All right. Okay. So it's super boring if you've ever had to do it. And what you could do is just actually say, hey, ask me 10 questions about my past year because I'm doing this self-evaluation and give me this well-structured report that aligns with the company goals and performance criteria. So you upload your performance criteria and your company goals, and then you use this to make it so much easier. I'll let you take a photo there. Another thing. I'm so excited. This works. Raises. So Gen AI can assist employees seeking an out-of-cycle raise or a market adjustment by gathering market data, identifying and quantifying accomplishments, creating a compelling narrative, and drafting a persuasive request. And I actually just became a manager after 45 years. And the first thing that I wanted to do is get 2 of my employees raises. And I was like, hey, ChatGPT, I want to get my employees some raises. Ask me 10 questions. And so it did. So then I took those questions. Well, we went back and forth. It gave me a list. I went to my employees and I was like, hey, answer all of this. And then I took that and put it back into ChatGPT. It wrote a compelling narrative and both of them got a significant raise. So this actually does work. And if it doesn't, then you could say, well, what are some other things that we could do? And then it'll tell you, oh, you could go to conferences in lieu of getting actual money. Total success story. The moment that it happened, I was like, yes, I'm going to talk about this at conferences. Another thing, we don't have that much time, so I'm going to skip over uploading the actual certs. I did download a bunch of study guides, but we all study for certs. I actually enjoy it. I think that it gives you a really good overview of a new product. So you can upload your study guides and you can actually get quizzed. And what I'll do is I will upload both the documents. Well, I have to see if they're copyright. I don't know. But I will upload my prompts so that you can do this with your own study guides if you're interested. And also, you can upload your own resume and job description and ask it how to better align your resume with the job that you want. And you can also ask it for a cover letter. But again, Claude writes the best. That's Anthropic. I think that it's Amazon. So use Claude and ask it to create your cover letter, which I know a lot of people dread. I actually like writing them, but other people don't. So you could do that. Feels like this. There was a political faux pas in America where the person was like doing something really important and then they started drinking. All right. So was that? So sorry. One more time. Ha ha ha. It was actually someone else. So how many of you know that on the ChatGPT app, you can actually talk to ChatGPT? All right. Yeah. How many of you have the new, amazing, brilliant, incredible ChatGPT that can actually see you and say, hey, you're dressed business casual. That'll totally work for your resume. I don't either, but have the old version and I'm waiting for the new one. And I want to show you how you can even use ChatGPT for career advancement. Now, sometimes the voice works and sometimes it doesn't. So what I did, good. I'm glad that you have that same problem too. So what I did was I recorded it, in my hotel room this morning. And, my favorite is Sky. Who did y'all pick? Sky. Nice. So, yeah, I could still, well, you could tell me if this is your Sky, because this is my Sky. All right. So we're about to, and I'm sorry about the potato quality. Look at this. I don't even think that I wipe the grease off of my phone. So I apologize. Hopefully everybody can hear everything just fine. Let's see. I want to make this as loud as possible, or maybe I shouldn't. I guess we could just try it. Let's try it.
Hey, Sky.
Well,
as you know,
okay. All right. Hold up. Thank you.
I have uploaded my resume and the job description for the position I'm gunning for at Microsoft, which is AI advocate. Can you help me prepare for my interview by asking a few questions?
Absolutely, Chrissy. Let's start with this question. Can you describe a project where you integrated OpenAI services to improve a developer workflow or solve a specific challenge?
Oh, yeah. So as a SharePoint developer, a challenge that we often have is to get users to properly fill in metadata. And metadata are things that describe documents. If you require the metadata, people are going to be more tempted not to save their documents on SharePoint. But then if you don't have any metadata at all, it makes it hard to find the documents. And for as long as I can remember, I have wanted this to be automatically filled out by something else. And whenever AI came along, I was able to create a solution that used both Power Apps and OpenAI function calling to automatically fill in that data for our users and lessen their burden.
That's an impressive solution. How did the integration of OpenAI with SharePoint impact user engagement and overall productivity?
I mean, it totally increased productivity because users could actually find their metadata, and the metadata was filled out properly because AI doesn't get tired or grumpy or save the file to its desktop. So overall, I would say now users are able to find the documents that they're looking for, and it was a complete success.
Thanks, Chrissy. That's all the time we have today. Good luck with your conference.
Hey, thank you, Sky. Have a good one.
Boom. That took me about 57 tries. But I really love it for career advancements. I hope that all of you see Gen AI in a different way, maybe using it for things. If you haven't been, more than email, more than just coding, we can actually use it to improve our relationships with other people. And thank you so much for attending my session today. I do have a book to give away. This is DBA Tools in a Month of Lunches. And the first person to answer the question I'm about to ask will get this. It's signed by me and Rob. And the question is, what project did I create to help the PowerShell community learn about AI integration within PowerShell? You. DBAtools.ai. Close enough. Here you go. Thank you.